In 1859, miners uncovered gold along the Blue River in Breckenridge, Colorado. News spread, and Breckenridge became the hotspot for a gold rush, attracting hundreds of miners per year. Among these explorers was Alferd Packer, a guide to 21 comrades on their way to a better future. Born in 1842, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, Packer served the Union Army twice during the Civil War, but was discharged both times due to epilepsy. His journey started in Provo, Utah, November 1874, where he met his 21 companions and started the journey to cross the San Juan Mountains to the town of Gunnison. On January 21, 1874, Packer was advised by a Native American chief named Ouray at a camp near Montrose, Colorado, to stay put at least until the expected snowstorm passed. A hard-headed Packer decided to continue the journey to the mountains, and with him came 5 other men. There were 6 in total: Alferd Packer, James Humphrey, Shannon Bell, George California Noon, Israel Swan, and Frank Reddy Miller. On April 16, 1874, Packer arrived at the Los Pinos Indian Agency near Gunnison, Colorado alone, and with quite a grim tale to tell. It was told that at an unknown date, the group became hopelessly snowbound and soon began running out of provisions. In the dead of winter, food was scarce, and since Packer was the guide, he left camp to look for any food he could find. He arrived back to camp to find a crazed Shannon Bell surrounded by 4 badly mutilated cadavers and kneeling over a 5th one. In a frantic daze, Bell ran towards Packer with a hatchet, but Packer was faster to yield his revolver and shoot Bell in the hip. Surrounded by 5 bodies, Packer's search for food continued no longer. He ate whom he claimed Bell had killed for the remaining months of his arduous journey and left camp as soon as the weather permitted. However, recent analysis of skeletal material and the employment of techniques used by forensic anthropologists shows a much less heroic attempt to save one's life.
Forensic anthropology can help disprove the myth by looking at the skeletal evidence and whether or not it's consistent with the story that is being told.
In 2001, archaeologists took a soil sample from under Shannon Bell's skeletal remains and retrieved traces of lead consistent with the bullets Packer's gun contained. According to the tale, Packer shot Bell in the hip.
It is possible that if somebody was shot with a lead bullet, that with time, with leaching, the lead bullet would contaminate the soil underneath the individual. It would also be very useful. There could be bullet rub, and lead would actually be left on the pelvis itself. So you would need to look at the pelvis with an x-ray and see if there's any lead still there. So theoretically, it could contaminate the soil underneath.
However, in the 18th century, lead was a commonly used material in the making of cheap fashion accessories.
It's normally, belt buckles, sometimes belt buckles, they're really cheap ones. They're made out of lead or pewter. And I mean really cheap. And I'm not sure how well appointed these guys were. It's not like they were dressed up for going out to a dance or something. They were just cutting through the mountains. That might explain it. Again, that would be directly below the pelvis too. Yeah.
It is also known that Packer's victims were not buried until August of the same year, leaving them exposed to the weather and carnivores for the 4-month period. 3 of the other individuals, as well as Bell, were found to possess round circular puncture wounds to the iliac bones of the pelvis, consistent with bullets, but also with bare scavenging marks.
Given the amount of time that's gone on between the event and the current analysis, it might be difficult to distinguish between bullet holes in the pelvis and scavenging marks resulting from bare scavenging. Broadly, they have the same general shape, they'd be circular and round, but it might be difficult to distinguish between the two.
Is it really logical that Packer shot 4 of the individuals in the pelvis? Or is it possible that a hungry bear came about and ate one of the body parts Packer certainly did not fillet for consumption? The frontal pubic region.
Given that the 4 total individuals had the same round hole in their pelvis, it seems odd that Packer would shoot everybody in the hips.
I think that the only way to really solve the problem would be to take a microscope and take a look at the pelvises of all 5 or 6 of them and compare them and look for, you can even probably do a trace element analysis on the edge of the impact fracture on the pelvis going in and going out, and then compare them, and that might actually solve the problem, or I should say the mystery, if that's what you guys are calling it.
This information does not necessarily take away the smoking gun from Packer's hand. The lead traces, a wallet with a circular hole that belonged to Bell, and Packer's revolver all support Packer's version of the story. However, the skeletons give us a chilling alternative. Several experts, when analyzing the skeletal remains of the victims, observed several different types of lesions to the bone. They consisted of hacking traumas, depressed fractures, butchering marks, butterfly fractures, and blunt force traumas throughout the body, being that depressed fractures and blunt force traumas are present only on the cranium.
The main difference you would see between a hacking type wound or something more akin to a butchering mark would be simply the size of the striation, the actual cut in the bone. A hacking mark would be much more violent and it would cause fractures to radiate from the point of impact. Smaller, sharp trauma wounds like butchering would be much finer and wouldn't be quite as deep. Depressed fractures generally result from a large surface impacting a bone, like a baseball bat to the head results in a different type of trauma than an axe to the head, and it would be diagnostically different.
Although post-mortem butchering marks were dominant throughout the body, unique characteristics of perimortem traumas were easily identifiable due to their revealing locations. Hacking wounds to the forearms of 3 of the individuals, including Bell, suggest that they defended themselves at the time of the attack and were eventually killed by fatal wounds to the head. However, 2 of the individuals show no such marks on their forearm, suggesting they were viciously murdered in their sleep.
Finding axe marks, or theoretical axe marks, to the back of the head or on the front of the head on the left-hand side is consistent with a right-handed individual striking somebody downward and from the right. So such marks would be consistent with the theory that Packer attacked a couple individuals in their sleep.
Although no one will ever know what drove those men to kill one another, it is possible that it all came about as a great act of desperation when face to face with starvation. Cannibalism in Western civilization, differently than indigenous cultures, happens mostly in extreme situations.
The most common occurrences are, again, those rare situations where you have people that are stranded somewhere that actually have to resort to survival cannibalism. And I guess you see more commonly on TV, you would actually see situations where people are engaged in some kind of cannibalism for sadorsexual pursuits, for some kind of aspect of their lives or control or something like that, that they actually have to use to kind of control people. There's a really huge difference there.
At an unknown date, Packer could have awoken to find one of the individuals eating in secrecy what little provisions they had left. After an argument involving all of them, Packer quietly waited for his comrades to sleep. In the midst of a cold winter night, Packer arose in silence and brutally murdered 2 individuals in their sleep. Cut marks on the forearms of 3 of the other victims suggest that for these kills, Packer had to fight the other man's natural instinct to live. Their attempts were futile. One by one, he murdered them all. Immediately after killing 5 of his companions, and before the bodies could stiffen, Packer began to systematically fillet the freshly butchered meat.
What do you know about the human meat consumption?
I've never tasted it myself, but when you get a burn victim, it smells a lot like barbecue.